It's finally here. It's WrestleMania weekend, WrestleMania Night 1, Saturday night. I am Alexis Carrillo, and today's broadcast, today's show was very simple, short, hopefully short, and to the point. Because we are here to give our predictions, our results, our winners for WrestleMania Night 1 in Dallas, Texas at AT&T Stadium. So without further ado, let's get right into this match, into the night, into the predictions. 7 matches, 1 in-ring segment, and 1 very big prediction spoiler that we have to give. So for the most part, let's talk about the very first match. And the match that I want to talk about is the shirt that I'm wearing. It's because the Scottish Warrior himself, Drew McIntyre, is heading into WrestleMania to face off against Happy Corbin, who's going to have Madcap Moss in his corner. Now, I'm not going to beat around the bush. This match, Drew McIntyre is going to win, bar none. There is absolutely no chance in my mind Happy Corbin walks out with the win of WrestleMania against Drew McIntyre. But my issue with this match is that McIntyre 2019, WrestleMania 35, he faced off against a returning Roman Reigns. Big, high-profile match. He lost it, but he was a part of a big, high-profile match. WrestleMania 36. Unfortunately, due to the pandemic, there weren't any fans, but he was the main event of that WrestleMania, which, if I recall correctly, was our very first two-night WrestleMania event since WrestleMania 4, I think, because that was in multiple events. Again, wrestling history kind of like foggy in my mind. But he beat Brock Lesnar to become WWE Champion, and he led WWE during most of the pandemic era as its champion, and as a top babyface for the company. Last year's WrestleMania in Tampa Bay, he went on and challenged the almighty WWE Champion Bobby Lashley in a losing effort for the WWE Championship. So we got those 3 high-profile matches during WrestleMania season, and when we get to this year's WrestleMania in Dallas, Texas, and it's nothing against Happy Corbin. He's entertaining, he serves his purpose, and he's able to be the absolute heel to Drew McIntyre's top babyface. But you all know what I wanted for McIntyre at this year's WrestleMania, and that was the main event against Roman Reigns for the Universal Championship. WWE had other things planned. So with that said, McIntyre wins this match. Claymore Country, no problem. We've got ourselves the match that other than McIntyre vs. Corbin, I'm not that interested in. And that is the Usos defending their SmackDown Tag Team Championships against a team of Shinsuke Nakamura and Rick Boogs, who are no doubt going to entertain the hell out of the crowd with their entrance. But, like I've said in the past, for the most part, this is a patch-up WrestleMania, at least it seems. The Usos walk out with the victory against Nakamura and Boogs. They are number 1. They are the ones, and they walk out with the tag team titles. No doubt. We got another tag team match that I'm not that interested in, but hey, it's Logan Paul. They want that celebrity flavor, that celebrity flair for each night of WrestleMania. But if Miz and Logan Paul walk out beating the Mysterios, that's going to be an injustice. That's just not going to make any sense to me. Especially considering that Logan Paul doesn't really have any wrestling experience. And the Miz, you know the Miz, he's a heel magnet. He is the bad guy of WWE these days. He does not need to win at WrestleMania. He doesn't need to beat Rey and Dominic Mysterio. So I'll give it to the Mysterios right then and there. We've got ourselves the New Day versus Sheamus and Rich Holland. Like I said, a very patched up WrestleMania card in itself. This was initially planned to be a 6-man tag team match, which would have made it a bit better. It would have been a reunited New Day for the first time in 2 years, with Big E, Kofi Kingston, and Xavier Woods going up against Rich Holland, Sheamus, and Butch, the man we formerly known as Pete Dunne. We all know what happened. Circumstances and the unfortunate injury of Big E has led to this match being a normal tag team match. Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods against Sheamus and Rich Holland with Butch in their corner. All in all, the feel-good moment I would have to give it to the New Day. I mean, if this was, if Big E wasn't injured, I would probably give it to Rich Holland and Sheamus, just because they need more momentum and the New Day can take a loss. But, it's a feel-good moment to have Big E and the New Day get the win for Big E, obviously. Like I said, these matches I'm not that excited for. They're mostly patch-up matches. They're mostly just in there to be a part of the card. That's entirely WWE's fault, and some of my fault. The wrestling, the in-ring action will be interesting. I have no doubt about that, but I'm not that interested in the build-up to any of these matches. And now we get to talk about the matches and the segments that I am particularly interested in for night one. And I think the match that should open WrestleMania night one. And the only reason I think that this should open WrestleMania Saturday is because they've made it pretty clear that it's not going to close out the show. It's not going to be the main event. And for all intents and purposes, the work that these two ladies have put on TV and the match that I know that they can deliver, if given the time, if given the shot, these two ladies either deserve to be the main event of WrestleMania Saturday, or they deserve to cap off the show. They deserve to open it. And I'm talking about Becky Lynch defending her Raw Women's Championship against the EST of WWE, the EST of WrestleMania, Bianca Belair. And they've gone back and forth. I like what they've been doing, adding those personal touches, those personal elements to each of these matches. Whereas Bianca Belair used her braid to attack Becky Lynch. Becky Lynch pretty much gave Bianca hell these past few weeks on Raw. Not to mention, they have history going all the way back to SummerSlam. So like I said, this match should be main event of the show. But if it won't main event the show, I'd have them going on first. And if they're going on first, I think it's time that Becky Lynch lose the Raw Women's Championship. I think it's time for her to finally get pinned for the first time in 3 years? That's the story that they've elected to tell with the man with big time backs. She hasn't lost the championship. She hasn't been pinned. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the fans to witness that. And it's time to begin the end of Becky Lynch's heel run and start transitioning her slowly, obviously, because I don't think she's going to transition into a babyface until at least November. But it's time for Bianca Belair to get some comeuppance. It's time for Bianca Belair to get her revenge, to get her titles, to get that win that Becky Lynch owes her, the character owes her since SummerSlam of last year. So in my view, Bianca Belair becomes Raw Women's Champion to open WrestleMania Saturday. You might have a different thought. That's just me. We've got to talk about that match that should close out the show, the main event of the show. If Bianca Belair and Becky Lynch isn't going to close out the show, then Ronda Rousey challenging Charlotte Flair for the SmackDown Women's Championship should definitely be the one to close out the show. Now, Ronda Rousey has struggled on her way back into WWE. It seems that she isn't to the point of where she was heading into WrestleMania 35 back in 2019, and that's understandable. She took a very, very long time away from the ring, and it showed in her promo work. It showed in her in-ring acumen. But if anyone can bring that out of Ronda Rousey, if anyone can give us a good showing for WrestleMania, that is Charlotte Flair. And I believe, looking back on it, hindsight's 2020, but looking back on it, WWE made the right call. Because most fans want Ronda Rousey versus Becky Lynch. They want it, including myself. They wanted that match to main event WrestleMania. It seemed like a no-brainer. It seemed like a surefire match. But looking at the segments that Ronda Rousey has delivered, looking at the matches that she's giving to us ever since her return, and I'm not trying to disrespect Charlotte Flair here, but it does seem like this is a tune-up match. This is a tune-up main event for Ronda Rousey. With all due respect to Charlotte Flair, of course. But hopefully, this starts to give Ronda Rousey the confidence back to the point that 1 year from now, the match that will no doubt happen, Ronda Rousey versus Becky Lynch 1-on-1. And that's a match that would have been robbed of its stellar main event performance if it was given to a very in-ring rusty, microphone rusty, promo rusty Ronda Rousey these days. But overall, my pick is Ronda Rousey walks out with the SmackDown Women's Championship. And she holds that gold for the next year, up until next year's WrestleMania, where Becky Lynch challenges her and dethrones her. And we get back to Becky Lynch being the man. I think that is the road that WWE should be taking. And I think that's the road that they are taking, barring any injuries, knock on wood. But overall, I think Charlotte Flair taps to Ronda Rousey at WrestleMania. Again, it won't hurt Charlotte Flair because she is an 11 or a 12-time women's champion at this point. It does not hurt her to lose to Ronda Rousey. And Ronda Rousey needs the momentum, and she needs the reps on the mic and in that ring. And she can go on that Roman Reigns type-esque run where she just goes on a roll on SmackDown and just beats Sasha Banks. She beats a returning Bayley. She beats Naomi. She beats all these stars and starts getting all this heel heat, which she will get because fans don't like that. But I think Charlotte Flair walks out with the SmackDown Women's Championship, bar none. Nothing can stop that. We've got to talk about the KO show. Kevin Owens has a special guest in Stone Cold Steve Austin. And I've said this in the past. I do not want this to be a match. I do not want KO versus Stone Cold Steve Austin in an actual match. I am perfectly fine with this just being a segment between two stars at WrestleMania. Stone Cold Steve Austin returning to Texas to open up a can of whoop ass on Kevin Owens. All I need is for them to go back and forth on the mic and for Stone Cold Steve Austin to deliver a stunner to Kevin Owens. That's all I need. Now, what I wouldn't be okay with is if this match, or if this segment, if this show closes out WrestleMania Night 1. Because WrestleMania is the biggest weekend during the wrestling year. And it doesn't matter if it's one night or 2 nights. It should end with a match, with a proper match closing out the show. It doesn't matter. I don't care if you're Stone Cold Steve Austin. If you are one of the biggest stars, if not the biggest stars to many of them out there of all time. Doesn't matter to me. You want to put this right before Ronda Rousey versus Charlotte Flair for the SmackDown Women's Championship, go right ahead. Knock yourself out. But if you have this close the show, then for all intents and purposes, against, my wishes, which obviously don't matter. Obviously, I'm just a nobody talking about professional wrestling on YouTube with all of you fellow wrestling fans. But if this is going to close out the show, then it should be a match. And it should lead to a referee coming out and having Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Kevin Owens close out WrestleMania Night 1. Which is something I don't want. Because it wasn't built up that way. Because if it happens, it's not going to be a 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30-minute classic. No, it's going to be a 1, 2 to 5-minute match where, for the most part, Stone Cold Steve Austin is just going to hit a stunner, pin him, and that's it. And I don't want that to happen because Stone Cold's last in-ring match was against the great one, The Rock, at WrestleMania 19 in Seattle. And that was picture perfect for Stone Cold Steve Austin to close out. Again, it wasn't on his terms. I get that. But if you give us this, Kevin Owens versus Stone Cold Steve Austin in an actual match, I'm hoping, all due respect to Kevin Owens, I'm hoping Stone Cold Steve Austin gets another match at the following year's WrestleMania against John Cena, against someone to really close out his career on his terms. Again, nothing against Kevin Owens, but if it's going to be either The Rock at WrestleMania 19, then it's going to have to be someone else. Build up to an actual match at WrestleMania. Not the way they've been building up to a segment, to a talk show, like they did with this year's Stone Cold Steve Austin and Kevin Owens KO show. That's just my humble opinion. That's just how I like to look at things. I know a lot of you fans, especially those that are going to the AT&T Stadium to watch WrestleMania live, you guys want to be there for a Stone Cold match. You'd obviously want that. So if that happens, and if you're there, kudos to you. Hopefully it happens. But if it were up to me, that's not going to happen. And finally, let's get into the final match that I have elected to leave at the very, very last for the very, very important reason. That is that Seth freaking Rollins has no opponent in WrestleMania. He has an opponent that hasn't been named that Vince McMahon will come out and say. And there are rumors out there that Shane McMahon is being brought back to WWE. And he's going to be a part of WrestleMania weekend. And a lot of fans out there are speculating that he's going to be named Seth Rollins' opponent for his match. Only for it to be a situation of bait and switch. And for WWE to give us Vince McMahon's true hand-picked opponent. And that would be a returning Cody Rhodes. And to be honest, that would be a perfect scenario if that were to happen in WWE. Because can you imagine Seth Rollins in the middle of that ring, waiting for his opponent, no chance in hell starts playing, Vince McMahon comes out and introduces his opponent, which is his son, Shane McMahon. Here comes the money. The entire stadium would go ape shit, booing. All of that. Because obviously, they don't want that. They don't want Shane McMahon versus Seth Rollins at WrestleMania. What they want is what happens next. Shane McMahon is about to approach the ring. He's about to walk down that long ramp on that WrestleMania stage. And all we hear is, well, first of all, we see the lights go down, lights go black, everything goes dark, and all we hear is, wrestling has more than one royal family. And then Kingdom starts effing playing on the speakers of the entire arena, and now the WrestleMania crowd of night one went from apeshit booing to apeshit gone bananas, cheering their asses out because the prodigal son, Cody Rhodes, has returned to WWE. And we are getting the American Nightmare versus Seth freaking Rollins at WrestleMania. And you know what? Cody Rhodes beats the shit out of Seth freaking Rollins at WrestleMania. And that does not hurt anyone in that match because he's returning to the WWE. Seth Rollins was not expecting him to return to the WWE. And for all intents and purposes, WWE Universe has never seen this version of Cody Rhodes. But now we get a glimpse, we get a taste of what Cody Rhodes can bring to the table. And we get a slobber knocker of a match between Cody Rhodes and Seth freaking Rollins. That's, now, if you ask me, that is the definition. The absolute definition. If you were to open the WrestleMania, the WWE encyclopedia, the WWE dictionary, that to me is a definition of a WrestleMania moment. And hopefully, I really want that to happen. I really want it to play out that way. And if I wasn't working tonight for WrestleMania Night 1, I would just pop in this seat watching Cody Rhodes return to WWE. As you can see, I'm pumped because I want to see him return. And it's just a big stage in WrestleMania. And it's WrestleMania weekend, baby. And these are the moments that WrestleMania is made of. So with that said, those are my predictions for WrestleMania Saturday, WrestleMania Night 1, whatever you want to call it. If you're going to be watching, if you have your own predictions, I'm sure you do, leave them in the comments section below. So with that said, I've been Alexis Carrillo. Enjoy WrestleMania Saturday tonight. Let's just have a hell of a wrestling night. So with that said, see you next time.